Should MPs cancel their holidays to return to Parliament to tackle the riots? Get your calls in for this one now. The Prime Minister has said that he will do whatever it takes to get control of the disorder across UK cities, fuelled by the far right. But he's yet to call MPs back to work. Now, they've been on holiday since the 30th of July and they aren't expected to return until the 12th of September. MPs across the parties have called for Parliament to be recalled, though. Nigel Farage tweeted out a statement on behalf of Reform in which he called for a proper debate about the riots. And Labour MP Zara Sultana simply tweeted, "Recall Parliament." But is it time Parliament was recalled, Danielle?
Yes.
Why?
Because we can all see what's going on. And I think that when...
what is going on then? What?
Well, with the riots. So look, nobody's going to condone violence. Nobody's going to condone this behaviour. It's not OK, right? We all know that. But when you look at the society, which started with men having hugely high suicide rates, because we start with sadness and it turns into anger. This is very prevalent in this, I believe. I think nothing just appears from nowhere. So this has got a backstory. What's going on right now is that people are upset. And we all know it's not right what's happening. We all know that this shouldn't be going on. But it is happening. It's very important. It's important to the people who live in this country. And we need the government to be fully on board and fully committed to addressing what's going on. This is not normal, is it, Storm? This is an everyday... We're not sat here talking about it.
But the government is having COBRA meetings. They are dealing with the situation. I suppose the question is, do all MPs have to come back from their holidays? But I hear what you're saying is, actually, this needs to be a wider discussion about the layers in which these riots have been built on. Andy, what do you think?
What are MPs going to do if they're recalled to Parliament? I mean, are they going to sit and eat cheese sandwiches in Westminster Palace and then have a debate? And what then? What we do have right now, which I absolutely love, this is fantastic. Let us not undervalue this. We have a statesman Prime Minister. And we have a capable, professional Home Secretary. We didn't have that a few weeks ago.
Well, they've been getting quite a hard time.
I dread to think what this situation would be like if we had divisive politicians running our country. They hold the responsibility for this. I know that there are politicians, Farage and the like, who are trying to blame Keir Starmer for these riots. Absolute nonsense. What started these riots was a despicable act by a guy who murdered children. That's what started these riots. Now, that would have happened whatever government. What we do have now is a statesman for a Prime Minister who's doing exactly the right thing.
But
leading the government. We don't need MPs there. MPs should be in their constituencies talking to local people in their area to make sure that community cohesion is the priority.
Sorry, Andy, isn't what started these riots misinformation on social media about the tragedy that happened in Southport?
And
the reason I make that distinction... The reason I make that distinction is because I wonder whether Danielle has a point in the sense that there is so much to consider when it comes to these riots, and maybe they need to come together to say, you know, we need to contact social media companies and make sure they're taking their responsibility as part of this. Maybe we need to bring in the army. Maybe we need to look at migration.
Do you know what
and how
I
the nation
see?
feels
Because
about it.
let me just make this clear. I voted for Keir Starmer, but what I see is that I feel there's a pocket of people who... And all I can put it down to is not that Keir Starmer is in charge, but just that I think there's a pocket of people who feel like they're not being represented and they're not being heard. Now, I'm not saying they're right, and let me make that also very clear. However, I think that this is a culminate. A reason I think this has happened now, other than, let's be obvious, what's happened in Southport, but I think the reason this is happening now is because I believe that while Rishi was in charge, this pocket of people did feel heard and represented, and I think now they don't. That's my personal opinion, and
But there's all sorts of civil disturbance during the Tory government. I think, yes, we need to do something about social media. I mean, if I had my way, even though I'm very active on social media, I'd be happy tomorrow morning if it all disappeared. Because I do think, actually, it's been a rotten impact on our society.
Well,
it's not about... Yeah, but that's another case of shutting people up again.
But calling
that's
MPs
saying,
back,
shut up, we don't want to hear what you got to say, shut up, stop talking.
It's the problem with social media is it encourages every idiot to be a fog trumpet, and they get the most attention via the algorithms on social media, because these are businesses. They want to make money, and that's how they make money, through advertising. Calling MPs back to Parliament isn't going to rush through legislation that gets rid of Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. What we need now is a government that believes in calm strict response, doing exactly what they're doing, bringing people to justice, finding out who the perpetrators of these violent acts are, but also just a voice of calm and someone who's leading our country just in a statesman-like way saying, we're in control, we're not going to panic, and we're not going to be bullied in our political system by crowds of people who are only a very small minority in society representing us badly.
Do you think that these people in their voice is a small minority?
I think there's a lot of people who are not vocalising how they feel. I do agree with that. But I think when we have what we're talking about is a radical extreme here of racist, and I'm going to use the word terrorists. And I do think, thankfully, they're a minority.
All right, Anne from Hertfordshire, what's your view on this? Do you think that MPs should be recalled back to Parliament?
Hi, Storm. Hi, panel. I think, he runs the country. The Prime Minister runs the country, and he should be back sorting it out for us. We voted them in to run the country, do their job properly and stop this. And this is all because of this boy that killed these 3 children, and it's got to stop in the children's memories.
I do wonder whether it was... I think that was the kindling that started it, along with the misinformation.
And it's got to stop now in their memory. The poor families have suffered enough.
Yeah. You cannot fight in the memory of children in this aggressive way like that and then say it's in the memory of children, because it's not a good... No, I agree, it's not.
But Anne, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, and the Home Secretary, the government are working. They're not on holiday, it's the MPs. And don't you think it'd be better if they're in their constituencies talking to, leaders of the Islamic community, the Muslim community,
but that's
talking
working.
to people who are rioting?
If they're doing that, that's working then, isn't it?
They can't leave the country with no one running it.
Yes, but Keir Starmer is running the country. He's having Cobra meetings. He's meeting,
probably.
I think he is having meetings, and he's incredibly active at the moment. So the government is doing what they can in order to stop these riots, and the police are doing all they can, and they're having constant conversations and constant meetings about what the next steps are. The question is whether every constituency MP has to be recalled back to the House of Commons in order to discuss the riots, to debate the riot. What I would be asking you is, if you want how many of them are there? 300 and something or other MPs. What do you want them to be talking about and debating?
I just want the top people back to stop the violence.
But they are back.
Police, talk to the editors, bring the army in, stop it. Okay. It's got to stop.
Yeah. I hear
People
you want...
are too frightened to go outside their front doors.
Well, to put the country into a national military state, I think would be a very frightening move and an overreaction in my personal belief. But you would need Parliament back for that if we were going to debate that. I'd absolutely want the MPs back if they were threatening to put us into a militaristic state.
That's what Anne wants. And thank you very much for your call. Claire from East Sussex, how do you feel about this?
Hello. Well, I think, in my opinion, there's no I in team. So therefore, I think, for what's going on at the moment, I think, and also, please just set political, whatever party you are, it doesn't matter. And I feel there's a lot of politics, Keir Starmer's not doing this. No, what we need to do as a collective, we all need to be hands on deck. There's people out there that are fearing for their lives, but they need to see their MP just a bit of comfort. And I think at the moment, I think come off your jollies and nothing else, be on standby. And also, can the parties just stop putting their... I was watching something yesterday, and one of the Shadow MPs was, well, if I'd have been here and this one... It doesn't matter. This has happened. Children have died. People are going mad. So come on, as a country, we've got to unite.
Yeah, Claire's right.
It comes from the top. And it comes from the top.
Yeah.
I can't do anything.
Yeah.
I live in Hastings, and I'm not a voice. Maybe when and also we're not talking about a manifesto. Can people just forget the politics? We need to be as one on this.
I do wonder though, Claire, because I think people want swift and effective action at the moment, and I wonder whether you've got so many voices in the pot. It's almost too many chefs spoil the stew, or whatever the saying is. And I do wonder whether, if you've got so many voices having a say on what we should do next, whether it is going to slow down the government's effectiveness in dealing with it. At the moment, they just have to deal with their own effectively, just the main characters that can make decisions, and they can make decisions quick and effectively.
Yes, I agree. But as you know, I mean, we've got the spokesman, we've got our Prime Minister in place, but I think it would be really good to have other MPs there, just support if nothing else. As I say, forget your political views. You know, we're not running an election and manifesto. This is real life crime. This is murder. You know, it's awful. It's just been awful. You know, libraries being burnt down. It's affecting communities, and everybody needs to, you know, like take your holiday to Ibiza a bit later on in the year. But at the end of the day, this needs to be sorted. And whether, you know, my personal view is don't bring the army in. We've got to respect the police. I mean, if it got really bad, obviously, I don't know. I'm not in charge. But I think we just need to have all hands on deck. And as I say, there's no I in team. And that's my, you know, personal opinion.
It's just how big you want that team to be, Claire. But I hear what you're saying. It might bring comfort to actually see your constituency MP in Parliament attempting to do something about this. Thank you very much for your call. Aisha from North Tyneside, what's your view on this one?
I think the MPs and everyone should come back and just go into these situations and sort it out, because left or right, they are the ones that have caused this. It's misinformation at its absolute finest.
Okay, well,
it's ridiculous.
Aisha, if it's misinformation, then it's the social media companies that have caused this, not necessarily the parties involved.
That's fine, but the politicians could come up and say, do you know how many refugees we've got in this country? It's 0.18%. So just to clarify, that is less than 0.25%. And we're making out like it's like this big, huge problem.
I think
being scapegoat. 1% of refugees are in the UK.
I do hear what you're saying, and that I think what you're referring to is, Aisha, I think what you're referring to is people coming over in small boats, because we will have refugees in this country that have also come through safe and legal routes. I am not sure whether every individual that's having these riots understands what they're fighting for and who they're fighting against. I think migration is definitely the key issue. And so you think it would help if we got all the MPs back into the House of Commons to debate? Should they be debating the number of migrants we have in this country then?
Well, we should be given more proper information, like I say, 0.18%.
Putting things into
like
perspective.
That is nothing.
Well, and also,
we need to give platforms to different people as well. When we were voting, we just got the Labour and the Conservatives and that absolute idiot, Nigel Farage. Like, that was all the choice we had. There's other parties, they should have been given the voice as well.
Well, I think the Lib Dems and the Greens were also represented in the leaders' debates.
Not very much, comparatively. And also we need speakers, not gobby idiots, but people like a Carla and Low-Key who have got information, proper information, statistics, to come out and talk rationally to the people and give them proper statistics rather than these fear-mongering people who are just using refugees as a scapegoat and exploiting the working class.
Okay, Aisha, thank you very much for your call.
Told to just not. It's very much. It feels very patronising because people are being told, "Shut up." And I think that that's the biggest message I can see in people's frustration. It's not that. Well, tell us what it is then. Tell us what is the problem.
David from Staffordshire, what's your thoughts on this? Do you think Keir Starmer should recall Parliament?
No, not at all, because he's doing a good job. He knows what he's doing. The only reason that Farage wants Parliament to be brought back in is for him to pour more oil on the fire.
Think so? In what way? He wants to open up a debate really about migration and how the nation feels about our net migration.
Yeah, but he doesn't say nothing constructive. I mean, it doesn't say how to return them back to France. How can you return them back to France? If you put them on a boat and say, right, France, you must take them back, They'll just give you the visa up and say, no, you left the European Union. You know, it's your problem. You know, you've got nothing constructive to say.
I suppose, David, what Nigel Farage is trying to do is open up a conversation. So, as Danielle says, these individuals who are rioting, who feel like they're not being heard, are heard, and maybe that will calm them down.
What he's trying to do is, sorry, I have to come in here. What he's trying to do is whip up division and hate. We have had a national conversation about immigration for years. That is why we are having these riots, partly. You know, during the election, one of the main manifesto pledges on the part of the two main parties was about immigration. You know, it's not something that we're ignoring in our society. It's not something that's being ignored in the press. In fact, it's being covered very divisively, very extensively in the press, and that is part of the root cause of what we're dealing with now. The last thing we need is MPs back in Parliament debating immigration.
David, thank you very much for your call. It doesn't look like Parliament is going to be recalled yet, and it doesn't look like we will be bringing in the army anytime soon. So we'll see how the rest of the week goes.